Welcome back to Chow Time Pods. Your host, Red. Again, video today from Legal Bites. Finally the conclusion we all wanted.
This TikToker has finally been indicted months after she went viral for recording an unconscious man in his own home, naked from the waist down. She uploaded the footage to TikTok where nearly 30 million people saw it. And
I can't believe 30 million views. That is freaking crazy amount of people, by the way.
Then she called herself the victim.
I'm the one being punished. He's not getting in trouble with the police. He didn't lose his job if he has one. What's going on with him? Why am I getting fired? Why are my videos getting taken down and why am I getting strikes? I'm about to lose my account. I was assaulted. I'm the victim. I lost my job. I'm the victim.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
You see, Olivia Henderson, the TikToker here, claimed that this man sexually assaulted her during a DoorDash delivery. And that was even though he was completely unconscious the entire time. But when police investigated...
definitely hard to assault someone in any way, shape, or form when you're kind of passed out. Just saying.
They determined that no sexual assault occurred. And as a result of this whole thing, she ended up arrested and charged with 2 felonies. She pled not guilty, and then her case got transferred to county court. And then
pled not guilty. Girl, you should have took a plea deal. Come on. It's so dumb.
And for a long time, it all went quiet. But now, after months of this case sitting in what felt like legal limbo, DoorDash girl has officially been indicted by a grand jury in Oswego County. And by the looks of it, the charges are exactly the same as what she was arrested for, which means the prosecution didn't water down a single thing. So in this video, we're going to talk about what the indictment means, what she's facing, and why this might signal that the DA is not necessarily messing around with this case. Let's get into it.
Shout outs to the DA for throwing the book at her.
Okay, so just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, since it has been a bit since our last video on the subject, let me first give you a quick recap of the case. This is Olivia Henderson. She is 23 years old from Oswego, New York. Back on October 12th, 2025, she was working as a DoorDash driver. And while working, she picked up a Wendy's order and delivered it to a customer in the city of Oswego. Apparently, that customer had selected the option to have his order left at the door. This is important for this case.
Correct. He did not say knock or open the door or come in and just check out my pee or something.
And my customer requested that their order be left at their front door. And when I arrived at their house, their front door was wide open and they were within eyesight of the front door, laying on the couch indecently exposed to me.
However, this conflicts with some reporting that's out there saying that the man actually has ring footage that shows her pushing the door open to see inside his home. And police would apparently later determine through their investigation that this man was incapacitated and unconscious due to alcohol consumption, and that therefore the assault couldn't even have happened in the first place. Now, a reasonable person walking into a situation like this where you have a customer that is unconscious on their couch, half naked, probably would have just set the food down and walked away.
I would have set the food down, maybe put it inside and just close the door for him. I'm I don't think this door should be open. Give the man some courtesy.
And if the door was indeed open, they may have just closed the door for the guy.
Right.
Or maybe even called someone to check in on him to make sure he was okay. But Henderson pulled out her phone and recorded him instead.
That's fucked up.
She then uploaded that video to TikTok with no censorship over his body, and she included his first name in.
I can't believe she did not do any censorship at all, and TikTok just kind of let her put it on there. That's pretty crazy.
The caption, not to mention the front of his house. And this video racked up nearly 30 million views before TikTok finally took it down. And then she uploaded it again before TikTok took it down once again.
You guys, my account is currently at risk of being banned.
So I didn't even know what she uploaded. Now we get the full context. Thank you, Legal Bites. That she uploaded the exact same video with him exposed. No wonder they took it down twice, you idiot.
And because I had to explain my story one time, right? They took the video down and gave my account a strike. So I explained my story again and censored the video that I have just so they can't take it down for the same reason. They took it down for the same reason again, and now my account has a second strike. Guess what? If I get one more strike, I'm banned from TikTok. So not only
And then she went on a TikTok campaign of sorts, claiming that this man sexually assaulted her. But here's something worth noting, which I have talked about in previous videos before. When she says that she was assaulted by the guy, she didn't go to the police first. Instead, she first uploaded to TikTok. Then she reported to DoorDash second, apparently. And she only went to the police after commenters on her viral video suggested that she should do it.
And they sent a police officer over to speak to me in person and watch the video that I have. And then he asked me to email it to him, and he asked me if I want to press charges, like what do I want to come from this?
And the sequence of events is potentially important. I would imagine that the prosecution is likely to put it in front of a jury so that they can understand that her allegations of sexual...
This was not an attack. This was just her trying to get clout and fame from all of this, right? Because if she was genuinely assaulted, 911 should have been called immediately.
Assault were not really legitimate, that she didn't have a good faith belief in them if the first place that she went to was TikTok as opposed to the police. Now, on top of that, DoorDash did respond to this whole situation. First, they banned the customer and Henderson. Then, because this incident went so viral, DoorDash actually put out their own statement about it on TikTok. There, they said that posting a video of a customer in their home and disclosing personal details publicly is a clear policy violation, and that was the only reason that her account was deactivated. But you know, Henderson was not happy about any of it. And the thing she seems to have been most upset about was the fact that she wasn't going to get paid for the views on the viral videos since they had been taken down by TikTok.
And they took down my video. They were gonna have to pay me for my second story time because that was over a minute long. They were gonna have to...
I guess 30 million views. I don't know how much that is actually worth.
Pay me for all those views I got. So no, they took that.
If there was 30 million views in freaking YouTube, damn.
Right down. They took that right down. Absolutely not. They're not paying me for that. Nope.
And that's something that is going to be probably important to show her intent in posting these videos in the first place.
Yep.
By
Money,
the way,
money,
if
money.
you need help with a real legal
She had to fuzz out his booty hole.
issue in your life, contact us at the Bytes Law Group at bytes.law. We're partnered with firms all across the US. So if you go to the link in the description below, we can help you find quality representation in your jurisdiction. Anyway,
I'm going to leave that on there just so if you guys need any help legally, give her some support.
I was saying, I mentioned earlier that the Oswego City Police Department investigated Henderson's claims, and they said that they reviewed independent video evidence from the scene. And on top of that, the man apparently cooperated fully and gave a statement. So the police concluded through their investigation that the man was incapacitated and unconscious on his couch due to alcohol consumption, and that no sexual assault had occurred. So on November 10th, 2025, Henderson was arrested by the Oswego City Police Department for recording the man while he was naked and then uploading that recording to the internet. She was charged with 2 felonies. The first count was for unlawful surveillance. That's for the act of actually recording the man with her phone without his consent. And the second count was dissemination of an unlawful surveillance image. That's for the act of uploading that footage to the internet. Then on December 4th, 2025, Henderson showed up at Oswego City Court for her arraignment where she pled not guilty. After that, the case got transferred from Oswego City Court to Oswego County Court. And this is standard in New York for felony cases, as is the case in probably most states. In New York, city courts...
Yeah, that's what happened with me. It gets take to circuit court instead. Circuit court's where all the felonies kind of go through.
Don't actually have jurisdiction to try felonies, only to do the most basic early appearances.
Right.
That means that once it goes to a grand jury for an indictment, the case is automatically transferred to county court. So until that grand jury indictment, this case has kind of been in limbo between the two, although it seemed like it was being positioned to be transferred to county court. That said, for a while, it was still very unclear to the public what was really going on until now. And so here's the big update. Olivia Henderson has now been officially indicted by a grand jury in Oswego County. As you can see from her docket here, her case is now listed in the Oswego County court system under an indictment case number. And the charges, let's take a look. As I mentioned before, they are the exact same charges that she was originally arrested for. You can see that count 1 is for dissemination of an unlawful surveillance image, which is Penal Code Section 250.60. And then there's count 2, which is unlawful surveillance brought under Penal Code Section 250.45 sub O.
It says amusement/profit.
1. So the prosecution has not diluted a thing. They didn't downgrade any charges. They didn't drop anything. They brought the exact same felonies to the grand jury. And the grand jury looked at the evidence that was presented to them and said, yep, there's enough evidence here. Proceed towards trial. So let's go over really quickly what a grand jury indictment actually is for anyone who isn't familiar. Similar to a jury that you see in a trial, a grand jury is a panel of people that are from the local community. And the job of a grand jury is to review the evidence from the DA's office and decide one simple question. Is there enough evidence to formally charge a person? Now, unlike a regular trial, grand jury proceedings are actually...
Yeah, this one... The grand jury on my case with the double murder said that there was not enough evidence to try me for double murder. So thank you, grand jury.
Not open to the public. In fact, typically it's just the prosecutor there presenting evidence to the grand jury. The defense usually doesn't participate at all. So really what that means is that the grand jury only hears one side of the case here. And that's one of the reasons why indictments are pretty notoriously easy to achieve. In fact, you've probably heard of the old saying that, if you really wanted to, you can indict a ham sandwich. So that's why it is important to note that even though, yes, she has been indicted here, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is enough evidence to convict her. Keep in mind that this...
Well, that is interesting, huh? And then that makes me think about the grand jury that was handling my case. What the hell did they see to them to say, nah, there wasn't enough?
Is in fact a criminal case, which requires proof beyond reasonable doubt. And that is a much higher bar than what the grand jury had to decide on. Now, of course, based on the evidence that we do know that's out there and the charges themselves here in this particular case, it does seem like most of the evidence is probably actually available to the public, and there probably is enough to convict, in my opinion. But I did want to note the differences between the burdens of proof in an indictment versus a trial, because that
makes sense. I didn't realize that indictments only was one-sided.
Is a huge difference between the two. However, the fact that the DA went through a full grand jury indictment here is worth paying attention to. You see, the DA also had another viable option available here, and that is called a Superior Court Information, or an SCI.
See, I thought it would go to Superior Court.
SCI is basically a shortcut that would allow the prosecution to not need to put on a whole case in front of a grand jury. To do it, the defendant waives her right to a grand jury, and then the DA files a charging document. So basically the case moves forward without that extra step. Now, SCIs can be an indication that both sides are actively working more towards a plea deal as opposed to towards trial. That's because an SCI is much faster and simpler than a full grand jury indictment, and it does signal cooperation between the two sides. But here, it looks like the DA didn't go the SCI route. Instead, they took the time to present
she pled not guilty. It seems like she really wants to fight it.
Case to a full grand jury. And that could mean that they are taking this case pretty seriously, which means they might be a little bit less willing to offer easy plea deals, maybe because they want to make an example here. Now, with that said, it is also totally possible that Henderson was in fact offered a plea deal before the indictment and that she turned it down. But if she did, I
can tell you now, she probably did, in my opinion, because you usually get the plea deal before these things. And yeah, she didn't want it. I'm almost positive that was the case, right? She was just like, I'm not guilty.
Personally think that's a pretty foolish decision, because the odds of her getting a better plea offer post-indictment are
very unlikely. Yeah, it's always that case. Like when you go before you go into trial and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, we're iffy on everything, so we'll give you a very easy sentencing, but then once everything is on the good to go, like, oh, you're about to get the fuck out.
Because the closer you get to trial, the less generous these offers tend to get.
Well, because it's wasting more resources and time.
That is assuming, of course, that there isn't some sort of evidence that comes up that surprises everyone that is super beneficial to the defendant. Now, aside from that, some people might be wondering why this indictment took so long. I mean, the incident happened in October 2025. Then in November 2025, she was arrested. And now in April 2026, we are finally getting an indictment. So let's talk about that real quick. So under New York Criminal Procedure Law Section 30.30, the prosecution generally has 6 months to be ready for trial when a defendant is charged with a felony. And when the defendant isn't held in custody and isn't charged with a violent felony, the DA's office doesn't have additional restrictions within those 6 months to speed up that timeline. And that's the situation here. She's charged with 2 felonies, but neither of them are violent. And she hasn't been held in custody basically since her arrest. And so while the wait has probably been very frustrating for a lot of people who are eager to find out more about this case as it proceeds, it looks like it's actually well within the normal procedural timelines. And honestly, my guess is that this case was probably just sidelined for a period of time while the DA's office focused on maybe more urgent cases, maybe involving violent felonies, for example, for a period of time while the DA's office knew that they were within the statutory window for this particular case. Okay, so let's talk about what she's actually looking at in terms of potential punishment now that she has been officially indicted. So both charges are Class E felonies. And under New York...
Class E felony is not bad in a sense. That is the lowest felony. That's what I got for when I got the cannabis thing in Tennessee. They gave me a Class E for that one. But I was able to, my plea deal was I get a Class E, I get 1 year of probation, and then after the year of probation, I was able to fully expunge my Class E, turn to nothing. So I'm not a felon anymore in a sense. So that was the best deal I was going to get. So I took that deal, ran with it.
Penal Law Section 70.00, the maximum prison sentence for a Class E felony is 4 years. Because she has 2 of these charges, and because these charges are for 2 separate acts, 1 recording, 1 uploading,
so
she could be
max.
looking at up to 8 years in prison if they run consecutively. And I
highly doubt she's gonna get that. Just women never get full sentencing on anything.
know that a lot of people are really hoping that she gets the full 8 years because what she did was truly awful. This man was unconscious in his own home, and he was in one of the most vulnerable states a person can be in. And in so many ways, footage that gets uploaded to the internet is forever. And honestly, a lot of people have probably rightly pointed out that if the genders were swapped in this particular case, there would be easy outrage across the board about the defendant's
It'd be in jail. Straight jail. No bail.
conduct. Instead of helping him or just doing her job and walking away, she recorded his naked body.
Yeah, this is where the whole women are so empathetic. Women are the more empathetic sex. Are they really? Are they?
And then she put it on the internet for the entire world to see. And what's worse, probably most of all worse for her, because now this is evidence that is almost definitely going to be used against her. She said at one point on the internet afterwards that her purpose in sharing the videos to the internet was to shame and embarrass the man.
Like, this is the only justice I'm getting, is exposing this man and having posted that video and it has gone viral. Like, now he can live with shame and embarrassment if people have seen it and knows who he is or where he, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the one being punished. He's not getting in trouble with the police. He didn't lose his job if he has one. Like, what's going on with him? Why am I getting fired? Why are my videos getting taken down and why am I getting strikes? Like, I'm about to lose my account. I was assaulted. I'm the victim. I lost my job. I'm the victim. Right? Is this making sense to any fucking buddy?
And that's on top of what we said earlier about her seeming most upset about losing revenue from the viral videos that got taken down. She wanted those views, she wanted to get paid. So the intent to degrade and the intent to profit are both right there on camera coming out of her mouth. And that intent is really important for proving the case against her. So these admissions are incredibly damaging for her case. But all of that considered,
Telling on themselves.
Here's the reality of sentencing. Henderson appears to have no prior criminal history.
Correct.
And to her...
No priors thing is a really big help for you. If you've never done anything bad, and all of a sudden you get a felony like this class. That's why I was able to get the plea deal I was able to get, because in Tennessee law, if this is your first felony offense or major offense in any way, you get this lighter sentence as long as it's your first offense. So my lawyer used that and then to get the plea deal to make it much lighter for me.
Her credit, since her arrest, she's been fairly quiet on social media. She hasn't been making things worse for herself like many social media influencers who have run into legal trouble. And under New York law, the court has options beyond prison for sentencing, and those include probation and conditional discharge. So unless the DA and the judge really want to make an example out of her, there is a good chance that she'll probably get some form of probation.
I'm almost positive maybe 1 or 2 years of probation. That's it.
Do I personally love that result? No.
No.
But I'm simply looking at the reality of how these things tend to shake out. But consider the fact that even if she does avoid prison, if she ends up with a felony conviction on her record, it does carry real consequences.
Well, that's the thing, Legal Bites. Maybe they might have given her the same very similar deal with me, where, yeah, she does have a felony, but after the probation, she's able to expunge that felony out because this was her first offense, you know? I don't know. It's just possible.
Can affect employment, housing, professional licensing if she ever tries to pursue something like that, and a whole lot more. It follows you for a long time if you can't get it off your record. And personally, I think that she should face meaningful consequences. This wasn't some kind of innocent mistake. It was a series of deliberate choices. She chose to record him, and then she chose to upload it, and then she chose to monetize it, and then she chose to falsely accuse this man of sexual assault, and she chose to double down publicly. Every single one of those choices was self-serving and at someone else's expense. And the person who paid the price was a man who was passed out on his own couch in his
with 30 million people seeing his pee-pee. Damn.
Own living room in his own home. People can debate all day and night about whether or not the door was open, how open it was, if it was open at all, yada, yada, yada. The fact of the matter is, she is not clearly in the clear here with her conduct. Anyway, so where does the case go from here? The county court docket shows that her next court appearance is scheduled for May 1st, 2026 at 9 a.m. It was originally set for April 20th, but that got rescheduled for, I don't know, some reason. So now there are a few possible paths that go from here. Path number one is one I've mentioned, it's a plea deal. Honestly, this would be the smartest move for her at this point, in my opinion. If she accepts responsibility now, she likely gets a more favorable outcome than going to trial and losing. Because honestly, the evidence here looks pretty clear cut for the prosecution. And I think that if this case goes to trial, it ends with a conviction. And on top of that, when it comes to sentencing, judges also tend to look more favorably on defendants who take accountability. Anyway, then there's path number two. Here, her attorney could file a motion to dismiss the indictment. You can probably put two and two together here, but that is basically where the defense argues that the indictment should be thrown out entirely. Maybe they say that the evidence was insufficient. Maybe they argue some kind of a procedural defect. But given the evidence, like I said, I think that is a very uphill battle. She made the video, she posted it, she talked about why she posted it extensively on the internet, to everyone, to the public, to the world. So trying to attack this indictment doesn't seem like the most successful route. Anyway, then there's path number three. If there's no plea deal and no successful motion to dismiss the indictment, then this case proceeds to discovery and eventually to trial. And you know, in my last video on this topic, I talked about how one of two things would probably happen here. Either she goes through some difficult character development and eventually decides to take a deal, or she digs in until the very end and almost certainly gets convicted with a harsher sentence. And so it seems like we are probably about to find out fairly soon which of those two paths she chooses. And I, for one, will be watching very closely. Until then, the way I see it, this could end up going either way, but at the moment, it looks like things are moving forward towards trial. In my opinion, her best move at this point is to take a plea deal if one is offered. Going to trial.
Tell the truth, most of the time, plea deals, you're going to want them. You're going to want them. They want solid conviction, and they'll give you a lighter sentence without having to go through all that trial, the money, the effort.
With this mountain of self-incriminating evidence just seems like a terribly losing strategy. But Those are my thoughts. What do you think? Do you think she might take a plea deal and actually accept responsibility for what she did here? Or do you think that she's going to keep digging her heels in and take this all the way to trial?
She seems like the type to dig her heels in. I hope she gets actual prison time, but I don't think she is. I'm 100% agreeing with Legal Bites on she'll probably just get probation. Most likely maybe a year or two probation. That's about it. Because she's a woman. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that. And catch you guys next time. Ciao.